Welcome to the February 3rd, 2026 meeting of Dover. Should I say Dover and Sherborn School Committee, or are we going to do it separately?
Separately, unfortunately.
Okay, sorry. Dover School Committee. My name is Goli Sapir, and I call this meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. We are pleased to hold this open meeting at Dover Sherborn Middle School Library, and also virtually this evening, and also live streaming with DSC TV. Please note that this meeting is being recorded.
Thank you.
Same.
Yeah.
Calling the Sherborn School Committee meeting to order. As Goli mentioned, it is being live streamed as well as in person. Good. Anything else?
So it looks like superintendent comments are first on the agenda. So we have two presentations tonight. The first one is Assistant Superintendent Conklin will be talking about the elementary instructional schedule.
I'm sorry, just before we start, did we want to do community comments or no?
They are at the end after all the information is provided.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for keeping me on track.
Yeah, thank you. And then I will talk about general shifts for the district. So before we begin, I just want to mention and thank Denny and the elementary leaders and coaches for all of the work they did over the last 12 months on this study. And, you know, similar to when we did the calendar study a year ago and looked at whether or not we should be adding holidays to our calendar. I know I went in to that committee work thinking of one outcome would be the best, and then found out through research and feedback that it was not the best outcome, and we landed somewhere else. And I feel like the same has happened here. So I just want to pay honor to the time that was invested in looking at our data, looking at comparable district data, looking at what's best practice in research, and then getting feedback and actually acting upon all of that and not just going with our initial instincts. So without further ado, Mr. Conklin.
All right. So I believe it was sometime when I was giving a literacy update in the fall, where we talked a little bit about the instructional time study. I gave another update at the joint meeting, and we've kind of come to the conclusion of it where we're ready to make some recommendations on next steps for the elementary time study. So the current challenge that we're facing is just the fact that there's limited minutes in the school day. In every district I've ever worked at the elementary school, this has been true. And there are a lot of different demands on that time during the day. They're very precious minutes in the classroom and in the school buildings. So we know that we're balancing a lot of priorities. We just implemented our new math curriculum. We're preparing to adopt a new ELA curriculum. We know that there are growing social emotional needs of our students, and we have a responsibility to the state to meet the DESE required frameworks. So a little bit about the process. So this started about a year ago, where we launched an instructional time study. And this is where we had teachers, one in each grade level in each school, volunteered to keep track of the minutes of their school day for 2 weeks. And then they submitted those spreadsheets, and we kind of took a look at how people were spending their time. We reached some initial conclusions, but the big conclusion from that was that we needed to study this more in depth, that these 2 weeks and the smaller sample of teachers, we needed to get some more information. So this fall, we went into the school year trying to refine that purpose further with our instructional time study, aimed to address this question: how can our schedule be used to raise student achievement while better meeting students' academic and social emotional needs? So to inform this work, the elementary leadership team, so that was comprised of myself, Superintendent McCoy, Kate McCarthy, Director of Student Services, our building principals, as well as our special education coordinators at both buildings. So that leadership team examined research on elementary scheduling. We looked at our comparable districts and looked at their elementary schedules. We took a look at the actual calculations for minutes spent on various content areas at both elementary schools. And we also put out a survey to get feedback from the staff on the schedules. So here are the things that we heard from staff from that survey. So 69% of the respondents said that they do not believe the current scheduling and allocation of instructional minutes best serves the needs of our students. And 11% of respondents said that they were unsure or had mixed views. One thing that we heard loud and clear is that the elementary school day currently feels very choppy. There are a lot of transition times that often result in unexpected behaviors from students. Everybody knows this. If you try to line up 8-year-olds, it's a process. And from moving place to place. We're trying to fit a lot into each school day. So sometimes it can feel like there's just a lot that's part of the school day. One thing that also came out very clear was that staff felt really strongly that we needed to devote more time for SEL lessons. Also, there was a lot of voice for more time spent on science and social studies. After this, there was a dire desire for more time spent on ELA, math, and then playtime came up as well, something that we wanted to make sure we had in the elementary schedule. And finally, staff had some concerns about the length of the WIN block. So the WIN, what I need block when students are getting interventions. The time has shifted and varied. It's part of our MTSS multi-tiered systems of support model. So some staff said that they thought it was too long. Some thought that it shouldn't be 4 days a week, it should be 3 or 2 days a week. So there were varying views on the WIN block. Some other things that we knew going into the study. The first part was that we needed to devote more time towards the required frameworks from DESE. Currently, we are not covering portions of the frameworks in science, social studies, health, and technology and engineering. We also know that we have mandates and we have initiatives from DESE, one of which is the HQIM mandate, high quality instructional materials, which mandates that schools choose curriculum and programs that are up to a certain standard. We're seeing this play out right now at the State House, where there's the literacy bill that looks like it's going to continue to move forward. That literacy bill will narrow down the list of programs that elementary schools are allowed to use for their ELA programs. So our program review right now is well timed as that bill is moving forward. We also know that some students that don't receive WIN interventions, Tier 2 interventions, students in 4th and 5th grade that don't play an instrument, they often have periods of unstructured time. So that's been a concern that we have heard from students, parents, and we also, like we said, that students need more instruction and practice of SEL skills and competencies. So these are the shifts that we are proposing to make to the elementary schedule. So we'll kind of go through them, go through some of the more specific elements that you can see, and then we can ask for some questions. I think one of the big pieces of this is we are creating parity and equality across both elementary schools. There is variation right now between the elementary schools, so this is going to put them all on the same page. We're creating equality with our teacher prep time, and it really is kind of standardizing our elementary programming. So you can see that every student is going to have 6 different specials a week. Every student in K through 5 is going to have art. Every student K through 5 is going to have general music. Every student K through 5 is going to have PE. Every student is going to have Spanish once a week, which we'll talk about in a moment. Another shift that we're going to see is that students are going to have library once a week. And for our upper grade students, that's going to be a change. Currently, we don't have library for 4th and 5th graders. So our 4th and 5th graders are going to have library, and that's going to alternate with technology. The 6th special in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, students are going to have technology and engineering. And then in 4th and 5th grade, they will have band, and that will, for students that choose not to play an instrument, rather than have them kind of go back to the classroom and do some independent reading, do some work in other content areas, they're going to be part of a new offering called Music Workshop. So that's going to be an opportunity for students to pursue things they're interested in with music. It could be international music. It could be learning more about playing the recorder. It could be learning about music production. There's really a wide range of things that Music Workshop could count. So it's important to make sure that our 4th and 5th graders, people that might not be inclined to play an instrument, that time is still being allotted towards some sort of music education. And obviously you can see the switch with library and technology. Probably the biggest shift that you can see that we would be making is a transition from our Spanish program. So there are 3 big models for Spanish language programs at the elementary level. There's an immersion program, so that's when students are fully immersed in the language. It's when between 50 to 100% of instruction is in that target language, in this case Spanish. Core instruction and subjects like math and science occur only in Spanish. And the goal is to achieve near native fluency and academic mastery in both languages. Then there's a proficiency model. That's the current model that we have, the FLES model, which is 90 to 115 minutes per week. The instruction is systematic and cumulative. It's aligned to the actual standards, and the goal is to develop the ability to speak, listen, and read in the other language, in the target language, at a novice, mid, high level. So the shift that we would be making is going from a FLES model to an exploratory or FLEX model. That model usually is 40 to 60 minutes a week. The emphasis in that model is on engagement, on exposure to the language, on cultural awareness, and the goal is to build basic vocabulary and phrases, and just to build student comfort with another language and to boost their confidence in another language, especially as they go into middle school. And we know that the study of language intensifies once they get to the secondary level. So that is kind of the shift in the models that you can see. Before I go on, one of the things that I do want to make sure that everybody knows is that the shift that we're seeing in Spanish isn't because there's like a glaring problem with the program right now. The program is a great program. We have fantastic educators that have made the program into what it is. So it's not because we are seeing something currently wrong with the program. We can be honest and say that these are really hard decisions. They're not decisions that are made lightly or flippantly. There was a lot of thought that went into the processes. Again, we explored a lot of different options. Over the past couple of years, we've been tweaking elementary schedules to try to preserve everything that we have. And eventually it gets to a tipping point where you have to kind of look at all of the things together. So we did come to this decision to make this recommendation to shift our Spanish model at this point. So some anticipated concerns that we anticipate from the community. The first is the impact or effectiveness of once a week Spanish. So some people might say, you're going from some students having Spanish 3 times a week to 1 time a week. Is that still going to be an effective program? Is it going to, what are students going to get from that program? And you can see in this model, it's not going to be the same. We're not going to expect the same level of language and proficiency. But at the same time, a lot of the goals that the program set out to, which was cultural appreciation, cultural emphasis, making students feel more comfortable talking in a second language, taking risks with a second language, or with Spanish, those are still going to be preserved in this model. So that we know that this can still be an effective model, even for 40 minutes once a week. And we know that a lot can get done in 40 minutes. We know that when we look at all of our specials, our art, our music, our PE, library, all of these specials are happening once a week for 40 minutes. So we know that you can make a lot of that time and still cover and have a really meaningful program within once a week for 40 minutes. I would anticipate that another question is going to be about middle school. So when students get to middle school, what is that going to look like for them? So students, when they get to middle school, they will still have the option of choosing between continuing Spanish. They'll get to choose if they want to take French or Latin. With French or Latin, they're going to be starting from novice level to begin with, so it shouldn't have a huge impact on French and Latin. For Spanish, there is going to have to be some readjustment of the curriculum at the middle school level. Luckily, we do have kind of a nice time period, a couple of years, where the students in 4th and 5th grade that had a lot of the FLES program, we're not going to see having to make a lot of changes immediately. So it will give our middle school world language teachers time to plan and make that adjustment. The other piece is, again, one of the big goals of the FLES program when it was first proposed in 2012 was to building cultural awareness and global citizenship. We believe that with the once a week, we will have that in Spanish. But we also know that we're going to be reallocating a lot of time to social studies. And we know in social studies that's a fantastic content area to build cultural awareness, to learn about different cultures within the United States, different areas of the United States, different histories. So we still believe that we're going to be able to hit those important goals of cultural awareness and global citizenship. One other thing, too, that's I think important to know is that the FLES program was started in 2012. The program that was proposed, it has shifted over time. So it's not necessarily the same program that when we started. Originally, the model for the Plus program was to have students meet a little bit more often, to have the classroom teachers in the classroom with the Spanish teachers so that they could be reinforcing the content when they went back to the general ed classroom. And over time, due to a lot of different factors, that has changed. So, we look at these three models, and even our FLES model, because of COVID, because of a lot of different changes, we have had to make alterations to the model as it was initially proposed. So some notes on some of the other schedule shifts. Again, to address the staff feedback about SEL, we will be using a new SEL curriculum next year and putting in lessons for students so they have some explicit SEL lessons. We'll hear more about that at a future school committee meeting. Recorder is going to be absorbed into third grade music. So currently, Recorder is kind of a separate music block. So that's going to be absorbed into the third grade music curriculum. And like I mentioned, in fourth and fifth grade, students that don't take band will have the opportunity to participate in media literacy. We'll have library and media studies added for students in grades 3 through 5. We're going to be absorbing keyboarding into the weekly technology and engineering special. I know in the last joint committee meeting, some of the members have brought up questions about AI literacy. So this is going to be a great place for us to build in some of that AI literacy into the curriculum. Another shift that we're going to see is that we're going to be hiring a health teacher who's going to be split between the two buildings. So currently we, again, aren't able to meet the health frameworks. We're not addressing a lot of the health frameworks. So this will be a way for that health teacher to push in into classrooms and to address the health frameworks. And in both schools in fourth and fifth grade, to respond to some of the questions about WIN, we're going to be launching kind of a new, what I call twin block, teacher WIN block, which is going to give our fourth and fifth grade teachers once a week some more autonomy over the WIN block to do review. So they might feel like students need review on a certain topic, kind of do whole class review or give the whole class what they feel like they need and to exercise their judgment after spending the time with the students on how they can enrich or give some review to students at that point. So some of the anticipated impact. So these shifts are going to enable us to create a much more cohesive, consistent daily schedule with predictable blocks and opportunities for extended learning time and fewer transitions. So again, that gets to the feedback that the schedule can feel really choppy. Kids are going to a lot of different places. Sometimes a math block is 45 minutes. Other days the math block is 60 minutes. Sometimes, special is first, sometimes special is at the middle of the day. So we're going to have a schedule that is much more predictable for students, and then it's going to get our students and our teachers into a really solid routine. We are going to have opportunities for longer learning blocks for students in their classrooms. And we're going to use these longer blocks of time to hopefully build in some of the extras and the student engagement pieces that we want. Hands-on activities with students, project-based learning for students. So although it might seem like, oh, well, students now are going to be in math for 60 minutes, like that seems like it's going to be a long time. We'll be looking at ways that we can really break up that 60-minute block. You can do a math movement break. We can incorporate more math games. Sometimes we want to make sure that we have enough time for small group work with students. So this is going to enable us to have that as part of these longer blocks. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to have equity between the two schools and grade levels with instructional learning time and prep time. And next year, obviously, we will be weighing these shifts, measuring these shifts, kind of putting together school-based committees to further fine-tune and to make changes if necessary. So again, we know that change is hard. Oftentimes, the change is perceived as loss. And these aren't things that we are doing lightly, but we believe that we're going to be able to create a really well-rounded experience for students. We're very excited about being able to build the library, technology, and music workshop into students' daily schedules, and looking at how we can utilize some of these longer blocks of time in the classroom. So with that, I'm happy to take questions and comments, and people that are on the Google Meet, if you just want to use the raise hand function, that'll help try to make this less hectic.
So this is an opportunity for members of the Dover and Sherborn school committees to ask questions, provide feedback, give comments. Then I will give my general district update, take feedback and comments from the committees, and then, as chairs, you're welcome to open it up for community comments.
I do have a couple questions. So I know there's a lot of research around children who learn foreign language in elementary school and how great it is for their cognitive development, math, everything. So would this flex program still give those kids that benefit, or does that need to be more of the, not the immersive, but the middle one, the flex one that we're doing now? For those kids to get all those great benefits, would that still be a possibility with such a shortened experience?
I think so. It's obviously not going to be as rich as that middle version that we talked about.
Right.
But the research does show that even with once a week, you're still going to get students. It's going to foster a lot of critical thinking skills with students as they are hearing new sounds, as they're trying to produce new sounds. It's going to help with executive functioning as they're kind of switching back and forth between languages. There is a lot of good things that are still going to be happening because of it. It's just not going to be at the same level as kind of the middle FLES model.
And then is there a change also with PE? So PE will just be once a week?
Yes, PE being once a week.
Okay. And so I know now for first grade it's twice a week. And for other grades, is it currently twice a week?
It's twice a week in all the grades except for third grade.
Okay. So that's another sort of larger scheduling change.
At Chickering.
At Pine Hill,
Yes,
once a week
always
for
once
everyone.
a week for our
Okay.
kids,
Yeah,
right?
we have twice a week. Okay.
But yeah, Chickering in third grade, since they currently have that extra quarter block,
Yep.
they don't. That's one grade that doesn't have PE twice a week.
Okay.
So that would be a shift. Then at Pine Hill wouldn't be a shift because they only have PE once a week.
So for Chickering, those are really the two big spaces that you're talking about making schedule changes. So it's Spanish going from 2 or 3 or 4 times a week to 1, and then PE going from 2 to 1.
Yes.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Goalie?
Yes, with these changes, do we know how much overall time per week we are adding to the classroom structural time? And also, you mentioned that mainly we are making these changes to add science and social studies that we are currently not meeting the DESE requirements. So I was wondering if we're going to have these science and social studies part of our classroom structural time, and is it going to be like all the classrooms are going to follow a specific curriculum? And just wanted to see what's going to be the curriculum for these subjects.
Yep. Great question. So in terms of the instructional time that's going to be added back into the schedules, it's a hard question to answer because it varies greatly between the two school buildings and between the grade levels. So there's not really one universal answer. I'll say that it's roughly anywhere between 40 minutes to as high as 120 minutes a week that would be putting into instructional time. And I can go more into depth at the individual school committee meetings if people have questions about it. In terms of science and social studies, in social studies this year we've been piloting the 5th grade investigating history curriculum. Next year we're hoping to pilot that in 3rd and 4th grade. So we'll have curriculum to use in those grades. But a lot of it right now is that sometimes we have to abbreviate things. We can't go into some of the extensions of the science or the social studies curriculum. We can't do as many projects. So this is going to free up time for that to be happening. We've been looking at some of the kind of mock-up schedules for next year. And in one of them that I saw, we have science and social studies built into every day, which would be a change because sometimes right now in some places we alternate between doing one social studies unit and then a science unit. Sometimes we're getting kind of little bits and pieces here and there. Again, it varies by the grade level and by the school. So this would make that a lot more consistent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm going to preface with saying I love music. I'm the grandson of a big band drummer. I noticed the library alt with tech, but there's no tech standalone for 4th and 5th grade. But there's music one day, then there's the band and music workshop. Can you talk through, is there any conversation about making the library alternate with band music workshop and having tech on its own as it is for kindergarten through third?
I mean, part of it was just making sure that we, similar to how we're trying to prepare students in other subjects, when students get to middle school and they take band, that we're giving the adequate practice time that they're going to need for band. So having it alternate like every other week, I don't know if that would give students the same amount of practice and time with Mr. Davis that they're going to need. So that's why it alternated with library and the technology switch. Martha?
Hi, thanks. I know that similar to all the other decisions that we have been making as a group in the last couple of years, this is very much data driven. And you mentioned that at the outset. Could you just spend a little bit more time explaining your methodology to get this data? I think what I heard from you is there were surveys of the teachers, there were reviews of other districts, best practices, etc. I don't know if you could just expound on that a little bit, please.
Yep, sorry, just trying to manage the Zoom room. So yes, to get to the question that you asked, so yeah, we did look at all of the schedules at the buildings and we tried to total up by content area how much time weekly students were spending on each of the various content areas. So we had weekly totals. So in first grade at Pine Hill, how much time are they spending per week roughly on science, social studies, ELA, SEL, snack time, recess, lunch. So we did that for each school, for each grade. And then we also took a look at when you add that up over the course of the year, how many minutes does that end up becoming? So we took a look at that data. And like you mentioned, we looked at our comparable school districts and took a look at their elementary schedules. We had colleagues that were nice enough to share kind of the detailed breakdown of what each day looks like in each of the grade levels in our comparable districts. So we're able to go through those kind of with a fine-tooth comb. And as you mentioned, we have the survey data as well.
No, that's really helpful, and it's something what I expect from our district. Could you kind of expound a little bit on some of the negative aspects of the current schedule construct that you're trying to avoid? You mentioned inconsistency. You mentioned the transition difficulties. But I know we've been having issues, especially since COVID, making sure that we're meeting our marks on those standardized education. Just it helps give us a context of why we need to change. That would be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of kind of the broken up, fragmented schedule, you might have a day where you start off the day with morning meeting, and then you have FLES for 40 minutes. Then you have a 45-minute block of math, and then you have snack time. Then you have a 60-minute block of ELA, lunch, recess. You come back to the classroom for maybe a bit of quiet time. Then you go to gym, PE, because that's your special for the day. Then you come back at the end of the day, and you might have WIN at the end of the day, the When I Need block. So with these changes that we're able to make by having this kind of standardized 6 specials a week, we can actually make it so that in the schedule, that specials block stays the same every day. So that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you have this amount of time in the classroom, and you know that your time where you're going to be leaving the classroom and going to that special is going to be staying the same every day. So you can plan for that, a lot less transitions for students to have to go back and forth. So that's kind of one of the things that we see as the benefit in terms of just the everyday aspects of students' lives.
Thank you.
So you mentioned comparable districts. Can you name a few that have actually done this switch to go to 1 day a week, and how that's been, how long they've done it for?
So it's hard to kind of have a direct apples to apples comparison. When we think about our comparable districts, about half of them don't have any world language at all at the elementary level. This is kind of another hard thing that came up in our discussions is that, as much as we love the FLES program and everything that is done for our students, it also isn't a mandatory part that DESE is telling us we have to have. So it's not something that is a required element. So that's why most other districts don't have an elementary world language program. So that's kind of a piece of what went into these deliberations. I know that, we kept saying, well, comparing Spanish to other subjects. At the end of the day, we kept coming back to this idea that yes, but it isn't exactly the same because there isn't a specific DESE mandate for us to have this. So again, that's part of the really hard decision-making process that we had to make. Then we have kind of the other half. So one half of our comparable districts that don't have world language at all at the elementary level, and then the other half that have sometimes 3 times 30 minutes a week. Some have 2 times 30 minutes a week. I don't know of a comparable district that has made the shift from like the 3 to 1. But I can't go into a lot of specifics, but I know that we're not alone in the boat of re-examining our elementary schedules, and there are a lot of other places that are kind of currently going through this kind of hard introspective look at their elementary schedules. So I wouldn't be surprised to see other shifts in some districts.
And just to follow up to that, did we consider complete elimination and decided we would do the flex?
Yeah, so we did consider completely eliminating it. That would have gained even more time back for instruction. But when we did look at the, what it means to the community, when we looked at the benefits that you can still get from the once a week, when we looked at having our students coming into 6th grade having a positive attitude towards learning a language, we decided that eliminating it wasn't going to be a good option, and the best way to preserve it was in this once a week model. But yeah, we did look at other options, like what happens if we just did it in 3rd, 4th, and 5th? What if we did it twice a week? Like, we looked at all these different possibilities, and this is kind of where we ended up landing.
Did you consider, like you mentioned, that the health teacher would push into the classrooms like technologies? Did you consider that as an option to eliminate the transition time, but more opportunity for foreign language?
We didn't look at that model just because we thought that it would probably be challenging to make sure we're building in the specific time. I know that technology right now sometimes it can be a little inconsistent because you're basically have to work with the teachers individually to ask them, is this a good time to come in? So we thought that that would probably lead to more inconsistency, and it was better to just have it as kind of a standard once a week thing built into the schedule.
And do our teachers have, I guess, is there a lot of professional development needed in order to fill this additional time, or is it more a scenario where there is so much content, not enough time, that this should not be an extra burden on the teachers?
Yeah. Well, when you look at what we are gaining back in instructional time, so one of our biggest numbers are 120. You divide that over the course of 5 days. So you're looking at kind of these incremental pieces that we can put back into the schedule. So it's not going to feel like all of a sudden I have 2 hours in a day that I need to fill.
Yeah.
But we definitely want to support teachers. The new music workshop with library in the upper grades, with technology, we know that we want to provide professional development and summer workshop days for those teachers to refine or build their curriculum. And like I said, we have some plans for piloting some stuff in our elementary 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade social studies. And again, we'll support the teachers. We're lucky to have instructional coaches that are great. So if a teacher all of a sudden says, I don't know what to do for a 70-minute math block, we have a math coach that can come and give them ideas, work with them, lesson plan, and really break it up. So it's not like 70 minutes of sitting there learning math, but they can make it really interactive and engaging for students.
And I guess just as a follow-up to that, will there be sort of best practices and guidance around movement? I know you were talking about movement breaks and games and things like that, but I know there's a lot of research out there about having more playtime and things like that. Obviously, we have DESE requirements, but this feels like a good opportunity to try and be creative about those. Will there be guidelines around, for kindergartners versus for 5th graders and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I know at Chickering we've been talking about ways to standardize more outside playtime in kindergarten and 1st grade. Currently at Pine Hill, second recess is built into the schedules in kindergarten and 1st grade, so we'll be looking at how we can incorporate more outdoor playtime in kindergarten and 1st grade. But we also hope that with the shift in the schedule to less transitions, teachers have
that time on the edges.
That autonomy to, if they want to take their class outside for a quick run down the sidewalk or go outside and do a lot of the SEL stuff could be incorporated with movement. So we're hoping that the pace of the day gives teachers a little bit more freedom to feel like they don't have to rush through curriculum, try to squeeze things in, but they can have a little bit more breathing room to incorporate things like movement into their day.
Great, thank you.
Anybody on the screen have questions, Goalie?
I
Or
think it's not urgent to go.
Yeah, Goalie and I both have questions, but Goalie, why don't you go first?
Sure, thank you. So just for the WIN program in the 4th and 5th grade, so the proposal is to eliminate the individual, like the smaller group WIN program and just substitute that with twin program, which is based on the teacher's decision, right?
So we're still going to have WIN as it is in K through 3. It's not changing.
Okay.
In 4th and 5th grade, there's still going to be 4 blocks of WIN time over the course of the week, and this is just for Chickering. There's still going to be 4 times 20. It's just that one of those 20-minute blocks is going to be for the teacher to do instruction with everyone. Those other 3 WIN blocks in 4th and 5th grade, students will still be receiving interventions during that time period. Currently at Pine Hill, WIN is 20 minutes long. Currently at Chickering, WIN is 40 minutes long. So we're going to be decreasing the WIN time. Again, that was some of the feedback that we got in the staff surveys, is that block felt too long. So we're going to have to make some adjustments in the interventions that we give students at Chickering. But again, it's just another way that we were looking at all aspects of the schedule, not just one particular content area. So I know it feels like it's a lot of focus on the reduction in Spanish, but we did want to make sure that we were being fair and we were looking at the whole picture and other places that we could get some time back from.
Just one clarifying question. So for Pine Hill, the 4 WIN blocks at 20 minutes stay the same, and there's one incremental WIN block or one repurposed WIN block for the teacher, but for the students who are currently getting interventions, that piece stays the same, at least at Pine Hill. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Kate?
Sorry.
Martha, go ahead.
Go ahead, Martha. I can go after you.
No, Kate, go ahead. I want to let everyone have a chance to talk. I'm not in the room, so it makes it a little awkward. I apologize.
Yeah, my question is more, I'm curious about like other languages that have been evaluated. I think obviously focused on the Spanish, but just curious from that perspective.
We have someone from the original committee here.
Well, we did, yeah. So actually, I was co-chair of bringing Plus into the elementary school when I was on school committee. And we spent a great deal of time evaluating all the different languages. They're actually the first push was looking to bring Chinese. And I think at the end of the day, that decision was Spanish was more universal. It would be a language that you could use out in the neighborhood because of the culture that we live in right now, and that it was probably a little easier for students to be able to comprehend, mainly even on the writing aspect of it, right? I think one thing that I've added, because I could see what we did before we had Plus, is we had language curriculum or extracurricular classes through our community ed, and so we had actually used that data to show that there was an interest in the community for that type of learning. So that was one of the pros that we used to bring it inside the school day. So I was thinking that we could probably go back and have our community ed department look at other opportunities and explore other languages that students could take advantage of in the after-school program. So
I know there's
that's something that we've asked our community ed.
And I know there's a strong desire for more community ed options to extend that school day.
Exactly.
And so that would be a fantastic
so that's a way
solution.
that we can sort of maybe marry the two. Obviously, it's an elective, but that also gives you more exposure to languages other than just Spanish. But I will say we spent at least 2 months evaluating just what language we wanted to incorporate into the Plus program.
Thanks.
So just circling back, because I know there is a lot of weighing of possibilities, and just so I can get a better sense you answered it right before I raised my hand, or right after I raised my hand, that it feels like the overarching goal for this rescheduling effort is to give back more time to the classroom teachers so that they can ensure their students are progressing along those more traditional, non-special curricula. Well, first, I'm trying to talk back to you what I thought I heard. Does that track with what you were trying to do?
Yes, it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna add time for classroom teachers to spend time on some of the DESE mandated subjects like math, social studies, ELA, science. But at the same time, the shift is also going to kind of expand the specials offerings that we can give students.
Okay. In a balanced way.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you're able to, but have you had any feedback from our teachers on this kind of a thought process, or is there an intention to do so going forward?
Yep, definitely. I mean, that was why it was really important to not make like a unilateral decision.
Yeah.
To not make just like a central office decision. To have the building leaders, the special education coordinators involved in the conversation. Because we also had to look at, if you change the elementary schedule, are there going to be implications for students who are receiving special ed services? So it's important for them to be part of the conversation, and then to go out and to get feedback through the survey. We toyed around with ideas of like, oh, could we do some of this feedback in person? But it's a sensitive topic when we're talking about specific people, their jobs, their content areas. When we felt like it was going to be probably challenging to get people to talk about it in person through focus groups, and we didn't want to put any of our staff in an awkward position where they had to talk about something else.
That makes a lot of sense. No, absolutely. I know I'm kind of going off in a little bit of a tangent, but it does seem to me that this might dovetail nicely into some of the other things that we are considering as school committees, especially the restructuring of the support model that we have for our teachers and making sure that there's enough time given to them. So hopefully these decisions are running in tandem and are complementary to each other. For those who are on the call today, it was spoken of, I want to say, last joint school committee meeting, but I don't know, Denny and team, if you can keep me honest here. There's a recording of it. It's super informative if you're interested in learning more about that aspect. But
Beth is actually going to give an update on that.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, perfect. All right, I'll stop them. Thank you.
Maybe we just remind the two folks that we're going to circle back to them if they weren't both here.
Yes. Yes, so for the two folks, I think, Amy and Lawrence, who are online, we have one more piece of presentation from the superintendent, and then we will be having community comments. But the one thing that I just want to add to that we're going to be putting out kind of an FAQ about all of this for people is, you might get the question, did we make these decisions about Spanish for budgetary reasons? And the answer is no. It wasn't to save money. It was independent of that. This started independent of it last January when we launched this time study. So this isn't something we're doing to try to save money. And like I said at the beginning, it's not something we're doing because there's an issue with the program. It's just it was the study and the outcome of this time study. So I think that's important to put out there as well.
So that said, Martha, to your point about feedback, there'll be an opportunity over the next 2 weeks to get feedback. We have gotten feedback from both educators and community members. The principals have as well. So, we're culminating all of that. And then since this is a programmatic change and you're moving from a FLES model to potentially a flex model in a curricular area, which is Spanish, this will require a vote of both the Dover and the Sherborn school committees. So we're recommending that on February 24th, which is a Tuesday, we always have Tuesdays, at 6:30 we do a Zoom with both committees so that you can decide whether or not you support this proposal or not, because there are budgetary implications. Even though that wasn't the intent, we still have to give a budget forward, and we need to know what to include in it and what to not. And those budget version 3.0s are due in March. So I believe the chairs are going to reach out to everybody and make sure that we can have a quorum on Zoom on February 24th, but between now and then I encourage you to talk to as many teachers and community members and parents as you can to get the feedback so you can make an informed decision for the kids.
And you'll be sending out information via Parent Square?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to transition. Martha, thank you for the great transition into more general district updates. So believe it or not, we're halfway through the school year, and we're already planning for next year, both programmatically and financially. We have two studies that were done. One is the one that Denny just talked about, the elementary time study, which started about a year ago. And the other one is what Martha referred to, which is the instructional leadership study that started a year and a half ago. It started in July of 2024, and it's just coming to fruition now in terms of recommendations. Again, had you asked me at the beginning of either, I would have thought the outcome would have been different, but I feel really positively about the proposals in general, and eager to, provide you an update. So while neither study had a budgetary intent, it's been a perfect storm that they both kind of ended now, and we're facing some budgetary realities in both towns. So while we still would have made recommendations around changing the elementary schedule, and while we still would have made the same recommendations from the instructional leadership model, and while we'd still be looking at enrollment, they're kind of landing at the point where they do fall on the budgetary table, regardless. So the town reality is what is this larger community that we're interacting with? So the town of Sherborn is facing an $847,000 budget deficit and has asked us to reduce our school budget by $500,000 in order to avoid an override. Now, that obviously every penny saved at Pine Hill goes directly back to Sherborn. You have to save twice as much at the region to have Sherborn gain any savings because Dover gets the other half. The town of Dover is confronting nearly $5 million in capital investments that needs to be funded either in the near term or deferred, and obviously that has an impact on their larger municipal budget. And so they've asked not necessarily for $500,000, but for us to be really thoughtful and fiscally responsible with our budget planning. So what does that mean for us? We're at a pivotal moment. We have an instructional study that is going to, a schedule study that's going to shift potentially what our elementary schedule looks like for the better of kids. And we have the instructional leadership study, which Martha referred to, that I'll refresh you on in a minute, that has some implications about how to move forward with the goals and the vision for the district. But as a result, we might have to put them all on the table and make some difficult decisions because of the budgetary forecast. So how are we going to do this? Our goals are, no matter what, to maintain academic excellence. That's what Dover Sherborn is known for. That's what we're proud of as educators, as parents, as taxpayers, myself included. That's why people move here. And we need to reduce the overall budget request. We're going to keep in mind that we want to make sure that students have access to current programming, meaning access to all of the courses, including keeping Spanish, and the small class size that we're known for, K-12. And we want to minimize disruptions for students and staff. So we're looking for places we can squeeze where students and staff are not really going to feel the difference. We do not want to cut at the bone. So, instructional leadership study. For those of you who are with us on January 13th for the joint meeting, this is a recap and a refresh. Otherwise, when we send out materials later this week, we will provide for you the full video presentation, some FAQs on this as well. But here's a recap. So, a year and a half ago, we said, okay, this is the district's vision. For curriculum, we want it to be relevant, so kids understand why they're learning it and they're invested in learning it. Instruction should be student-centered. They should be doing the hard work in the classroom, not absorbing and giving information back. And assessments should be authentic. We don't want them all to be paper pencil, MCAS-like. They should be interacting with real audiences, doing real projects to find outcomes and answers. 4 years ago? How many years have we been here? Too many to count, I think. 4 years ago, when I began as superintendent and Denny began as assistant superintendent, we did our entry plan. And we came up with our strategic plan for the district for 5 years. And that involved input from everybody, from students, from teachers, from parents, community members, everyone. One of our buckets is around professional learning and growth. And one of the action items in the strategic plan was to examine the current leadership model to ensure that we have adequate instructional support to take that vision of relevant curriculum, student-centered learning, and authentic assessment to can we bring that to life with the instructional leaders, the department chairs that we have in place to really make that shift from 20th century learning that we all experience to really putting the kids at the center and giving them voice and choice and all of those 9 best practices that we talk about. So last July of 2024, we launched this. We brought in the Athena study, you'll remember, and we did kind of a triangulation of data. We got feedback from anybody in the district who would give us information. We looked at our comparable districts. Are there things that we could learn from them that we should do or should not do? And what does research say is the best way to provide teacher support in the classroom so they can make those shifts with curriculum, instruction, and assessment? What did we find? We found that teachers in leadership positions, whether that's PLC leaders, coaches, middle school curriculum leaders, department heads, are in the best position to make impact on their peers in the classroom. But they can't do that if they're teaching a full load. So they need time, they need training, they need feedback to improve as leaders to make that shift happen. We heard from the district loud and clear that the supervision and evaluation system that we use to evaluate our teachers often feels like a check the box, get it done, put it in the drawer and move on. And that's not what it's intended to be, nor is that valuable if we want to continue to evolve our practices, my own included. And we've heard loud and clear that our K-12 vertical articulation of curriculum needs time and attention. So as I say, Denny is currently responsible, and I understand the predicament he's in because it was formerly me. He's responsible for 8 disciplines across 12 grades, and he's the glue that keeps all of that together. And I did my darndest, he's doing his darndest, but there's still work to be done. So we looked looking, for example, at other towns that these are several of our comparables that we use in various different realms of what we do. What we noticed is that specifically their high school department chairs teach 40 or 60% of their day. So they might teach 2 out of 5 sections or 3 out of 5 sections and then be in the classrooms providing support to teachers and feedback to teachers the other 40 or 60% of the day. What's interesting about Dover Sherborn is good and bad. It's good. Our department chairs teach 80%. They are teaching 4 out of 5 subjects a day. So they are in the classroom. They are doing the hard work. And as we heard from community members when they got feedback, they're some of the best teachers. We want them in the classrooms. And that only provides 20% of their time to do all of the work that they need to do to support their colleagues. So we're kind of a one-off in that regard. We did bring forth the idea to them that perhaps we can reduce their amounts of teaching load to give them more time. And they said, no, we want to be in the classroom with practitioners, and that's what matters. And what we also learned from our comparable districts is in addition to a superintendent, an assistant superintendent, department chairs, curriculum leaders, coaches, they also have these curriculum coordinator positions that vary. In Holliston, for example, they have one at every school that specifically pays attention to the curriculum, does some coaching with teachers, looks at assessments. In Hopkinton, they have a K-5 math, a K-5 literacy, and a middle school ELA. So you can see they've kind of prioritized in the district based on their size, based on their needs. Wayland has a K-12 ELA, a K-12 math. Weston has 1 elementary each of ELA, math, science, and social studies. And Wellesley, which is kind of hard to compare to in this regard, only because it's much larger than us, so they have a lot more students, a lot more teachers, they can substantiate having 1 curriculum coordinator at the elementary level in each subject and 1 K-12 in each subject. We just don't have enough staff and students to make that a reality. So 2 things to take away here. Our department chairs are dedicated to being practitioners and so don't have all the time that these other districts have. And these other districts are already ahead of us in having 2, 3, 4 curriculum coordinators somewhere in their district, whether it's elementary, K-12, etc. So the proposal that we gave you on January 13th, which again, Martha was alluding to, is that we provide additional time and compensation for the middle school curriculum leaders and the department chairs. So the time comes in the fact that, yes, department chairs have had 1 period off to do this work. Curriculum leaders have been trying to do this work with no periods off, and it's impossible. They've said it's impossible. Their peers have said it's impossible. They need time. So what we're proposing is both the curriculum leaders at the middle school and the high school department chairs both teach 80%. So they're even now and at least have some time, but get to be the practitioners that they want to be. We're also providing additional compensation because we realize their jobs have expanded, as all of ours have. So that is currently being negotiated at the table to increase their stipends to cover the amount of work that we're being asked to do. That said, we looked at 3 different models, talk about looking at models. We looked at the potential of department chairs being 6 through 12, which would help with the alignment at the secondary level. We got feedback that wasn't preferred because it would require them to teach less because they'd need to stretch more grades. And Middle school teachers felt it was really important to have someone at the middle school level who understood their demographics and their subject areas, and the high school said the same. So 6 to 12 didn't work. Then we looked at providing more time, saying, okay, high school department chairs, you can stay high school, but you teach only 2 sections. Middle school, you can teach fewer. Again, they want to be practitioners. So the solution we came up with was learning from our district, our peer districts. What if we had 2 K-12 curriculum coordinators, one humanities to bridge that or create those glue stems all the way through K-12, and one STEM and one humanities, who would work with Denny and work with the principals to make sure that all 8 subject matters across all 13 grades are really cohesive. Because Denny can do a lot of work, but for example, the math curriculum rollout, which has been a 3-year process, took a lot of his time, in addition to the work of the principals and the coaches and, of course, the teachers who did the hard work of implementing it every day. But while Denny was focused on supporting all of those folks with math, with 60% of his time, there wasn't a lot of other time for him to be supporting the other 7 grades and 7 disciplines. So this would provide opportunities to give support in all of those other areas at once, so that we can get more of the work done that we want to see around curriculum instruction and assessment more quickly. What would the budget implications be? Because this has to be either built in or not into the budget. Providing additional time and compensation for the middle and high school curriculum leaders and department chairs. That would be a regional budget addition of $25,200. That's not currently in version 2.0. That will be shared at 7 o'clock tonight, because it hasn't been agreed to yet by DSEA. It's still on the table. If it's agreed to, we will put that in the budget. Adding 2 curriculum coordinator positions, they're roughly $140,000 each. So at the elementary levels, each elementary school would pick up $56,000 of that, and the regional budget would pick up $168,000 of that. And then you'd have the 2 K-12. That said, we are facing $850,000 deficit in Sherborn. And as you'll hear in a moment, we're making other shifts. We have Spanish teachers, who unfortunately, are going to be having to make difficult decisions about their next steps. With shifts at the elementary level, in knowing in a moment that we're going to be reducing positions at the middle and high school, I would prefer to wait to move forward with the K-12 curriculum coordinator positions until we see how the elementary schedule plays out, and until we see how the reductions at the region play out, to make sure that our goal, which was not to impact students' programming and their learning, is true, before we spend the money on something else where we might have to go back and revisit that, because truly we want the students to be benefiting in the classroom. I'm disappointed. I'm sad. I've talked about this for 9 years. It was 2 years of a study. It was a lot of feedback from everybody. It was a negotiation with the curriculum leaders and the department chairs about what is best for them in terms of being practitioners. How can we support them in that means? And I think we just have to put it on hold at this point. So what does that mean? Right now, it could be a potential $25,000 increase just at the region, so that we can compensate the middle school and high school leaders for the work that they're already doing. Any questions on that before I go into the elementary?
Yeah, so so I understand then, it looks like everything was struck out, so that means that we're not contemplating any new additional staff to help Denny out in his arduous task of keeping the glue, being the glue for the district.
No, not at this moment in time. And I think what that means is we will continue to do what we've been doing forever and trudge along with one small project at a time, one large project at a time, I should say. I'm worried about the K through 12 alignment of curriculum and resources. Our teachers have asked for help planning their grade level and department professional development. That's not going to be as robust as it would have been if we had a curriculum coordinator. Getting deeper into data analysis of actually skills in every subject area, that's going to have to wait. The evaluation process, we won't have more hands on deck to make that more meaningful. I think what's really hard to swallow is that at the elementary level, we are, and you talked about this, we're moving forward with science, we're moving forward with social studies, we're carving out time for library and media and technology and engineering, and we're starting health. We're not going to have a curriculum coordinator to help with that. It's done.
So I'm mindful of our obligations to be good stewards of our town's funds. I was very enthusiastic about the plan that you were putting forward. We talked about a lot last time around, not the least of which is the fact that we just went through upgrading our math curriculum for the elementary school. There's that need, as you mentioned, to make sure there's alignment between our elementary schools and the regional. We're looking at our ELA. There's a lot of time that's going to be expended looking at that. And again, bringing that alignment on through our schools. While Denny does an amazing job, is it realistic to think that we can accomplish all of those very important tasks without any change to our regional admin support model? I just want to be candid and honest about this.
Yeah, change will not be as quick or as robust as it would be with those two positions. But again, I mean, if we want to maintain the programming, maintain the class size, and ensure that if we, you know, like I said, I'm alluding to some reductions in staffing. What I would hate to do is add those positions, find out that we really need some of those educator or counseling positions back, and then have to let these people go in a year. So I want to watch and make sure everything falls into place with the reductions that we're having to make for budgetary reasons and for enrollment reasons before we make a move forward with administration. I mean, Denny's going to roll up his sleeves. He and I were looking at our to-do list today. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'll get to skate back in teaching and learning, which is a joy. The principals will have a lot more to do. The department chairs and curriculum leaders will have a lot more to do, and we'll make do.
I mean, I will say, too, that some of the work that we've been able to sustain in all these content areas, we've been working in past couple years by bringing on some consultants to help with that. So I think that, you know, there will be some financial costs because in order to continue to look at that vertical alignment, to do some of the curriculum reviews and not put extra things on people's plates, you know, we are going to have to probably continue to work with some outside consultants to get that done.
Well, is
I mean, we're not going to come, but there's no vote for today on this.
Right.
Appreciate that this is a dramatic change from our conversation that we had last month. I know you all had to pivot. I will just put it out there, challenging the art of the possible. I know that the towns are asking to meet these budgetary constraints, recognizing, however, that the vast majority of our population lives here for our excellent school systems, and recognizing that the administration is the key to success. We, as the members of the school committees, need to ensure that you have the right level of support. I want to make sure that you think very, very hard about whether removing that ask really makes sense for the success of the school district. I don't know what the answer is. You know the workload. Let's just make sure we have an open conversation at our next meeting when we talk about the budget. And we're at least giving an opportunity for us to bring a budget forward potentially that might not look the same as what's being asked of us. Let the town vote it down, whatever the case might be, but at least know that we're making the correct decisions on behalf of our school district. So I'll stop there, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand the support that you could potentially have and not give up on it too easily.
And I was going to ask a similar question of, as the three people who have probably spent tens of hours, maybe more, wrestling with these decisions, is this the least bad option? Obviously, there are no good choices, right? We have to make hard decisions, but is this the least bad?
I think so, because the other option is cutting more teachers and potentially either increasing class size or reducing some courses at the high school that we're renowned for that the kids have access to. You know, to Martha's point, if as a committee or three committees you feel strongly about this, you know, you are in charge. You can say we want this in the budget. You could say we want one of them and pilot them.
That's what the question is. What's the budget implication with one? And if there was one, which side would it be on? Would it be on the STEM side or the humanities side? Where's the greater need?
Yeah, so it would be half. So each of the elementaries would be 26,000, 28,000. Thank you. At the region, it would be
134.
134?
Yeah, it's 168. I'm sorry, half of that, yeah.
84,000.
Got a lot of numbers running through my head.
I bet.
It's hard because,
Yeah.
you know, again, Denny and I put our heads together, and since the time I got here almost a decade ago and the time he's been here, and we said, okay, STEM, humanities, like here's the to-do list. I don't know which one's more pressing. I mean, the elementary rollout of the literacy program is pretty pressing.
Yeah.
You know, I think the humanities person shifting world language would fall under them. I think looking at the music program, there's, you know, a strong desire for a strings program in the music program, which you don't have yet. So my guess is we'd probably start with humanities. But, you know, ideally we'd have all of it.
Yeah. My follow-up.
I guess.
Oh,
Sorry.
Sorry, Martha. My follow-up was just, I know you want to keep it 80-20. I forget what you call it, but in the classroom and then leadership. Is there any relief on budget if that becomes 60-40? You know, I understand we want our best teachers in classrooms teaching, but if those best teachers can have their hands on rolling out a new curriculum, it sounds like a good, you know, at least quickly in my head, sounds like a good use case. Does that relieve any budget?
Yes, I do think that there is room to reduce their sections, and we'll talk about student enrollment in a minute, which would allow that to happen. A couple of things. One is I think it would be, while our department chairs are amazing and willing to learn anything, it's going to be a learning curve for them to learn elementary literacy and help roll it out if they're typically high school practitioners. And also, I think it was very clear to us that they want to be practitioners. That's where they feel they're valued. That's where their colleagues value them. And I'm not sure we'd fill the positions if they taught less than 4.
Got it. Thank you.
Are there still other moving parts in the budget? Because I know we have March. And I don't know if that's pushing this to say we need a decision by March, or could things happen in the next 5-6 months that could help?
But we do need to have the decision made by March, because our budget, as far as school committee's responsibility for it, ends in March, and then it goes to the town level. So we can't make any changes after that, after you have your public hearing in March. I think the elementaries are pretty well set, because there's not a lot, your operations are pretty basic. Where we still have some unknowns is at the region. So it's still early for some of, just like towns are still waiting to see how healthcare is going to roll out, you know, how some of the state revenues are going to play out. That's all still in process, and so we clearly, I'm telling the region tonight, we will have a version 3.0. So there still is some potential for movement in the budget. I think I'll say, like, right now with the budgets that Sherborn is going to see and the region's going to see, we've almost met our goal for what Sherborn has asked us to do. So that's the one positive that comes out of this. But I will say too, from having sat in this for so long, I'm like Beth and sad that we can't make it happen, because I think it's a really needed thing in this district.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think we all. Sorry, Martha, it's so hard, and then I'll hand it to you. I would just echo
please do.
Martha's. Like, I think we all need to do some soul searching of if we feel this is really the right thing for our students. Do we go to town? I mean, I'm in Sherborn, right? So that's what I'm thinking about. But do we go to town meeting? Is this where we say, okay, you asked for 500, we'll give you 300 or what? Like, I do think that this sounds like it is a serious enough issue that it's not just a yep, check the box, like this is what we should do if it's right for the students.
And especially looking at the override numbers, is it this year, next year, following year?
Right.
We're just pushing it out a little bit, and so I think that discussion is also worth having with the town of saying the benefit of that earlier. It's going to be a problem soon. So what does that look like?
Martha, over to you.
Yes, so I guess the only ask I was going to have is it possible when we have those budget conversations, I know you're going over some of them today, but not with the Dover School Committee. Could we just have a breakout of the one support person to help just find out what the actual cost would be and what we would need to do to absorb it? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be baked into the budget that you're presenting to us, but I think that's a data point that we really need to see.
Sure. Yeah. All right, let me put you on hold for 1 minute, only so we can get through the other 2 prongs here. And Denny just talked about the elementary instructional time study, so he did such a good job. I'm not going to redo it. Does anybody want me to redo it?
No, ma'am.
I thought so. Okay, so the second piece was this year-long study about looking at the elementary schedule. You've seen all this. You saw the purpose. You saw the findings. You saw the proposed schedule. You saw the changes and wins. You talk about the elementary Spanish program. This is more so for the regional district who needs to get caught up on what's happening at the elementary level. So the budget implications. We would be, if we moved in this direction, reducing 1.8 teachers of Spanish at Chickering. And we currently have a full PE teacher. That person would be going to a 0.6 health teacher at Chickering, so it's a difference of 0.4. So that's a savings on the Dover side of $178,000. On Pine Hill, on the Sherborn side, it's one Spanish teacher and an increase of 0.4 health teacher that they're taking from Chickering. So there's a difference there of $39,600.
So that would still be one human who previously was full-time at Chickering and is now going to split 60-40 between the two.
Yeah, and we have a retirement so at Chickering, so that person would be hired as a health person to be split. So it's not affecting a human in that regard. Unfortunately, Spanish is a different story.
Right. Understood.
All right, and then part 3 of this is declining enrollment. Okay, so everybody got the first 2 pieces? Okay, declining enrollment. So declining enrollment, school-age enrollment is declining across the country. In Massachusetts, it is. They're estimating there's 15,000 fewer students these days than there were a decade ago. Why? Demographic shifts, birth rate changes, housing costs. We know what that's all about. Population shifts, and then post-pandemic, as you know, during the pandemic, a lot of families opted to go to homeschooling or private schools, and some had decided to stay there and then send their younger siblings through. So we're seeing a decrease in the amount of students attending K-12 schools in public spaces, including our own. There's a small dip in Chickering. Pine Hill's actually going up a little bit. At the region is where we're primarily seeing it at this point. So high school enrollment this year, currently, 2019, just before the pandemic, we had 679 students at the high school. Next year, we're projecting, with all of the data that informs the budgets and how big class sizes should be, 557 students, which is a difference of 122. And then 2030, we're dipping down to 524 students, which is an additional 33 students. At the middle school, in 2019, we had 524 middle schoolers. Sorry, there's a typo there. Next year, we're dipping to 447, which is 77 fewer than that. And then in 2031, we're dipping to 400, which is another 47 kids for a total of more than 100 students at the middle school and 150 students at the high school. Now, at the elementary schools, and you live this, every year we take the kids in one grade, we roll them up to the next, we divide by 18 to 22 and figure out how many sections we need. Sometimes a second grade section needs to move up to third grade, sometimes a fifth grade section rolls off. Luckily, we have a retirement. It doesn't affect a human. That's natural at the elementary level. We do this all the time. At the middle and high school, it's far harder to do because at the middle school, we do what's best for kids. We have a team model where kids are on Team Sun or on Team Moon, and they have the same English, science, social studies, and math teacher. That creates some inefficiencies because you might have a team of 70 kids, you might have a team of 110, but you're committed to those 4 teachers being together and working with those kids. And at the high school, you have students taking CP or honors or AP. You have choices, are they going to take psychology? Are they going to take astronomy? And as people have noted, which I think is one of the reasons we stand out as a school district, the number of courses our students can take in a tiny district is remarkable. So once you start chipping away at FTEs at the middle school, you risk losing the team model. Once you start chipping away at FTEs at the high school, you start losing courses and perhaps some choice that the kids have. And for once, we might have to say, no, I'm sorry, you can't take that course, pick something else, which is not something that our students are typically used to hearing. And that's why we pay the taxes we do, right? My kids included. We're at a tipping point now when you're talking about 150 students at the high school and 110 students shifting, where we can probably start to make some reductions without affecting students' programming and class size. And so that's what we're proposing we do. So we're hoping to align staff with the numbers that we have. We want to do this primarily, like we always pray we can do at the elementary level, is take advantage of retirements by not replacing those positions with people, instead eliminating those positions and avoiding layoffs unless they're absolutely necessary. We, again, don't want to impact student learning and access to coursework. Class sizes are wonderful here. We don't want them to skyrocket. We want them to stay in that sweet spot, which is generally between like 16 and 20. Small groups tend to be between 3 and 7. And you're going to hear there's going to be reductions in counselors. The reductions at the high school would leave us at one counselor for 185 students, which is still comparable to our peer districts, far under expert guidelines, which is 250. So I think that the changes we're about to suggest won't hopefully affect class size and programming, nor affect the relationship that our students have with their guidance counselors. So what does this mean? So there's 2 shifts at the administrative level. So the administration is taking 2 hits. The first is that currently we had a pre-K director, formerly we had a pre-K director and out-of-district coordinator position combined. We are saying we're going to take the pre-K responsibilities and we're going to give it to the special education coordinator at Pine Hill to manage. So we're loosening up a 0.5 administrator to have some budget savings. And that helps at both sides because both schools have preschools. As you know, we've kept more students in the district, and we're at a point where we have some students at the high school level who are probably going to need education beyond 12th grade, and they need to be prepared to go into the workforce. And so we need to start having transition and skill classes to prepare them for life after 12th grade in the real world, where college may or may not happen. So we're saying we'll take the out-of-district administrative 0.5 and add another 0.5 to it and create a teaching position instead that will handle both the out-of-district placements and helping those students learn some skills both during this day at school, outside of school activities, and preparing them for whatever post-12th grade looks like. So we're giving up a 0.5 preschool administrator, a 0.5 out-of-district administrator, and creating a new teaching position who can support those kids. At the high school, we're looking at not replacing one history teacher who's retiring. It's actually only a 0.8 reduction. It's not losing 5 sections, it's only losing 4 because we have another teacher who's only 0.8 that we can bring up to 1.0. So we'll only feel a difference of 4. We have 2 guidance counselors at the high school retiring. We're only going to replace 1. Again, the new caseload that counselors will feel next year is no different than it was about 10 years ago. It's very manageable. We've kind of had a gift in between with the reduction in enrollment. And at the middle school, as you know, we recently moved to 3 guidance counselors so that there'd be 1 at 6th grade, 1 at 7th grade, and 1 at 8th grade so they can move with the kids. But again, looking at caseload, it's not really fiscally responsible to have 3 with these smaller classes. So we're recommending that we go back to 2. So there'd be a savings at the region of $290,000 there. Retirement savings. So every year when we roll our staff over, the staff is 80% of our budget. Salaries go up not 2.5% like taxes. They go up anywhere between 4 and 12%, depending on where a teacher is in the matrix. The reason that we can counter that and say, well, Dover and Sherborn are not going to give us more than 3 or 4 for 5% increase is because when somebody retires, we take their $131,000 salary and we hire someone who's more in the $60,000 or $70,000 salary, so we can save that money and offset the higher than 3 or 4 or 5% increase that teachers are experiencing. So retirement savings at Pine Hill, moving into next year is $125,000. At the region, it's $116,000. In Chickering, we're still working through the final details as people make their final decisions. So by reallocating resources, making enrollment-driven decisions, we hope to maintain academic excellence and reduce the overall budget request, not to give away the good news, but it's looking like we can meet Sherborn's ask of nearly $500,000 with these changes. And we still have health care and other potential savings as well.
Just a question. I know we've done a lot of work over the past many years to continue to minimize our out-of-district placements and support students in-house, both because it's what's right for the kids and also from a financial perspective. Would the change for the special education coordinator, do their other responsibilities get cut in half? Like, how do they have the capability to take on half a person's job while not impacting our students?
So currently, the out-of-district coordinator, or formerly formally I will say, because we're kind of pinch hitting this year because of a shift in personnel, it was half out of district, half pre-K. So there used to being only half out of district, and now instead of a pre-K person, we're saying, okay, we're going to marry you with
So it's just replacing
the transition. It's replacing the half. And Kate has looked at it 9 ways from Sunday, and it's
I will
possible.
say, keep in mind, we created the pre-K director position when we had more pre-K classes, right?
Got it.
And we're down now to just one of each.
One of
building.
each. So it's
So we've
sustainable,
taken-
no impact to
Yeah, we've taken
particular
that
special ed
position
students.
down from a 0.5 to really a 0.2
Got it.
to manage the two
Okay.
programs. So
My first year going through this, is this a typical budget? Like losing, retiring, or is this very?
So hiring newer, younger folks
Yeah.
for retirements is kind of our standard, which is
Yep.
how, again, we can afford the teacher salaries that bring us incredible teachers. Not replacing them happens often at the elementary level because, again, if you have a huge 5th grade roll off and a small kindergarten coming in, you just don't replace that retirement. It's new at the middle and high school. In fact, Denny and I were talking to a high school teacher today saying this has never happened, in my 20 years here, that we've actually had to say we need to cut positions at the high school. And, they were being very forthcoming and said, but every other town does this all the time. We're very lucky that Dover and Sherborn says, what do you need, and we'll fund it. This is the first time they're saying we're getting close to that override. If it's not this year, it's going to be next year, and it's going to be the next year. So it's up to the school committees and the taxpayers to decide when that's going to happen. And I do want to put a caveat in there that if student enrollment does go up, or we start to see an impact on students' access to programming, or their class sizes, which we know are small and provide that opportunity for kids to develop relationships with their teachers, have full engagement, you're going to see us back at the table advocating for those positions back.
But based on what we're seeing from what we know of the younger ages and the census data and all that, we don't expect that to happen in.
Not the next 5 years.
So it seems like a financially responsible move without question.
yeah, I think it's best said earlier, it's the tipping point, right? We've been seeing declines. It finally hit a point where it's 100 kids. 100 students. I think there's pressure from the towns. We've always asked, well, your enrollment's going down. What are you doing? We always say, well, we offer so many different classes and we don't want to cut that. I think we're at a point now that we can preserve that, but because you don't need so many sections of those classes anymore because you don't have people to fill.
Makes sense.
Anecdotally, I've been asked to cut budget numbers since I started working, and the fact that we're trying to hit what they asked. I think we should. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of room to get us what we need. I would assume so.
So this proposal goes into feeding what they're asking us. We would need this for sure to make that number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you have your individual meetings, I know Sherborn you're going to stay after, and then we have the region, and then Dover your next week. Don will go into the nitty gritty numbers. I was just the big idea person.
But I think that what's on the table right now are not, like, we have these numbers regardless. The reason why we're hesitating is because we really would like to add. And we're not because of the budget, right?
Yeah.
So all these decisions, we would be, the towns would probably, if they didn't have a budgetary constraint, Sherborn would be elated because we would still be bringing these forward. And I think that's the important thing. We're not doing this because any town is telling us to cut, because believe me, we would fight for whatever we need.
Sure.
These are things that we can give up, and we're not
For number
impacting
3.
the school
For number
district.
3.
For number 3 only.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I appreciate the update, all the thought that's gone into it.
Can I just have a quick check on the time, because I realize there's meetings coming after this. Were we supposed to have ended?
There wasn't a definite end, but we do need to end by, we should end around 7 if we can.
Right, so
Any comments?
Yeah.
Dover.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate it.
Dover, the only thing left is community comments. And Sherborn, you hear the same community comments, and then we'll have to quickly go through
Your financial report.
the Sherborn financial report says Dover leaves. So,
Do you want me to
All right, thank you. Should I move to community comments now?
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So we have provided a Zoom link for those who wish to make a comment, but for whom it is not possible or prefer to attend in person this evening. Before going to the community comments, I just wanted to read this short instruction that please remember that community comments are an opportunity for members of the school committee to listen to members of the community. It is not a forum for answering questions or engaging in a debate. We respectfully request that you please make your comments brief, no more than 3 minutes, and that you move the discussion forward by adding new information. Please try to avoid repeating points that have already been made. Once the public comment section of the meeting has been concluded, we will move to the other business, and unsolicited comments from the community will no longer permitted. This is standard operating procedure in school committee meetings across our 3 school districts. Thank you so much. I see hands up on the Zoom. Unfortunately, I can't see in-person comments. Is there any in-person comment? If not, we can move on to the Zoom. I see Lawrence.
Hi, thank you, Goli. This is my first time commenting, so I did have questions. I'm not sure if I'm allowed. I'm trying to wrap my head around all this information that was provided on the first topic, which was the scheduling change. I guess first I'll just preface my comments by saying thank you to Denny and to Superintendent for their diligence and the work they put into this. It's very interesting, and also respect our teachers. I'm just making my comments more in the sense of our children and their learning and their curriculum. I just had a couple of questions, but I'll ask them, and if you're allowed to answer them, answer them. If not, cut me off. But I was just on the words that were used. So there was this survey, 69%. I'm not sure I understood the methodology of the survey in terms of who were your respondents. Were they both Pine Hill and Chickering? Were they classroom teachers? What was the percentage of classroom teachers versus specialists? We call that specialists, not that special, but like how did it work? Like what's the detailed findings? I don't know if that's available. Maybe not answer my question, but maybe provide a hub of information for parents, because I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one that wants to know more about your data and like which district you looked at, and I think maybe suggestion box, making just a hub for parents to be able to find this and be able to understand those survey results. So that was one of my comments. And anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge fan of time efficiency. Like tracking my time is one of my favorite pastimes. But I'm also a big fan of well-rounded children and a well-rounded education. And there's tons of studies out there that provide the benefits for, your math scores will increase if you learn a second language and if you learn music and if you play outside, fresh air in a structured environment. So I'm just wondering, I'm assuming you guys looked at this when you picked the FLUS program back in the day in 2012, but I'm sure there's very strong benefits that we have to keep in mind when we decide to go down. And as a person who was educated with 3 languages in schools, I can guarantee you don't learn any language by doing 40 minutes a week. This is something that seems, might as well just not do it. But anyway, this is a community comment. And then I had another question. And
I'm so sorry, Lawrence. Sorry to cut you. we need to keep each person's comment or questions to 3 minutes.
Okay.
And we have multiple hands up.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Next, I see Amy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I just wanted to comment on Denny's presentation. I have to say, as a parent, I have 3 children in the middle school who have all been through Chickering, and I have a kindergartner. So as a parent, I have seen the impact, and I've been really concerned about the time in the classroom, the effectiveness of our schedules, and what they're spending their time on. So I really am thrilled with what you presented and what changes will be made. I'm very excited for the stable blocks during the day, opportunities for the kids not doing band. To be honest, I've had 3 kids go through the Spanish program. And yes, they went to Spanish 3 times a week, but they came out knowing almost nothing. So in the way that my children have gone through the program, it already was this, like that third choice, that flex model. And I actually think this is wonderful. It gives them a little bit of opportunity to see the language. And I think it maybe will actually help the middle schoolers. They enter the 6th grade Spanish program supposedly knowing all this and starting at a very high level, and they are overwhelmed and stressed and don't enjoy Spanish because they don't actually know what they're supposedly supposed to know. So this will allow them to start at the same level as the other languages, and I think it will actually make them enjoy it more. I'm thrilled for it. I have studied the MCAS data. I know that there is a slide in some of our scores, but especially there's a slide in the above, like the exceptional children, like the kids who are scoring above standard. So my comment, or I know you can't do a question, but my comment about WIN is I still didn't hear what are we doing with the kids who don't have a specific need? What are they doing during WIN? Because right now it's just a lot of wasted time for them. That's how my kids have gone through it. And I know that there has been pushback about having time to actually enrich and challenge them. So I hope that we can, with this change, we can take the WIN and still allow those who need something challenging to have that during that time. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the call, I see Lowland Hall.
We can't hear you.
You're muted.
Can't hear you. Oh no, she disconnected?
No. Oh, sorry, I put my hand down, not my mute off. Okay. Hi, I'm Leland. I have 2 students at Pine Hill. So I agree about the Spanish. My students, I thought it was exploratory. So I think that it intuitively makes a lot of sense, this simplifying of the schedule. I think the thing that I didn't hear in the methodology is with the comparable school districts, I agree with Lawrence that this would be helpful to hear a little more about the methodology, and especially in the comparable school districts looking for positive deviance and outcomes at those schools. As Amy mentioned, we have had some slide, and it's not instead of just looking at kind of was there any look at kind of the actual outcomes in terms of the core math and ELA skills of the students kind of when looking at some of these things. I do have some concerns about kind of, because of that, replacing time with more social studies and social emotional learning. I didn't hear much about what the more social emotional learning planning was and how that would be incorporated in. Is that more free play, which is okay. Or is it somehow, I guess, what are the basics and what are the core outcomes that we're trying to improve for the students, and how have those been taken into account with what sounds like a opportunity to have a simplified and hopefully more beneficial for everyone schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other community comments?
These questions, Goalie, are helpful. Denny and I already have a draft FAQ for all 3 buckets, so we can add whatever questions were asked tonight that aren't already there, and there'll be live documents on the website. So as questions come in to either any of you, let us know, and we can just keep adding to those documents.
All right. Thank you very much. So with that being said, Dover School Committee is going to move to adjournment. Is that right? We don't have anything else on the agenda.
Right. We'll see you next week for your Dover numbers.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Goalie.
Thanks, Goalie. Bye, Dover.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
a lot of this, so in your packet, just so you know, actually we'll go right to what I just handed out. We did not want to include this information in your packet because we really wanted to make sure that you had the presentations that Denny and Beth went through, because without that context, it probably would have been hard. But you're looking, if you look at the second page of this packet that I just passed out, you'll see this is the changes that we're proposing for version 2.0. And quickly going through them, we've talked about the reconfiguration of the pre-K director position. So that's a savings for a Pine Hill budget. We've got the salary reduction for educator retirements. We have the reduction of 1 FTE specialist in the flex. And off to the side, you'll see that if one of these changes was impacted by one of the presentations tonight, I added that so you can make sure you say that tie-in. And then also the addition of the 0.4 health and wellness educator that we'll be sharing with Chickering. We also are doing one other small shift. As you know, we have new connections over to Chickering, and we're still figuring all that out. There is a need for more BCBA coverage at Chickering, and we've looked at our caseload at Pine Hill, and we can do a shift, so it'll keep that person whole, but then allow Chickering to have that additional capacity they need based on what they are covering. And keep in mind that the behavioral certified behavioral analyst.
Thank you.
Good job, Don.
But also keep in mind that Sherborn actually has students over there, right?
Right.
So in a way,
us as well. Yeah.
That's sort of the piece. And then we started for the first time supplementing some of our pre-K educator with the pre-K revolving fund. Some of our discussions with the town, there was a push for us, why aren't we using more of the pre-K revolving fund? So I put in another $18,000 coupled with already what was in your version 1.0 plus the EA that's already charged routinely to the pre-K revolving fund. So with this add, we're looking at using 100% of the tuition. So I think we'll satisfy the town wanting us to use more of that revenue. I'm always very cautious because when we do one classroom and it's an integrated preschool program, we want to make sure that we have the special ed costs in our general fund because it plays into our grant funding. And so that's why we don't usually just put it all over there. So we're looking at a reduction and mainly, I have one more thing. So because of the not bringing forward the K-12 curriculum coordinators, as Denny alluded to, we know we need some support. So in all 3 of our budgets, we've added some additional consulting PD costs. So that's $20,000 that you'll see added in there. So we're looking at a net reduction of your budget of the $218,600. Version 2.0 has no changes right now in out of district. That'll be something that I'll work with Kate and those supporting those cases to see if there's anything that we can shift, hopefully the positive in version 3.0, but just not enough information to make any changes right now. The good news is that you're bringing your operating budget increase down from a 4.43 to a 1.43. So,
would we need consultants if we pushed for?
You're talking 20 versus
That's not
56.
literally the same question.
I think we push. Like, you guys have cut so much from this, especially if there's one as a test case.
Yeah.
And as a taxpayer, I cringe, but
What is the exposure again? Net exposure. So removing the consultant and then adding in the curriculum leader.
For 1 versus 2.
Over this weekend, I did have a budget with that in, I will tell you. So we're looking at the elementaries. It would be, ignore the $20,000, we added $56,000 because we're taking the 2 positions and we're sharing them the same way that Denny shared with the district. So it's 60% region and then 20% each of the elementaries. So the elementary budget is not where it's the impact. The impact is really at the region,
60%,
where we have to put the $168,000. So I think that's what we're grappling with.
That's 1.
That's with 2.
Right.
Because 140 each, so it's 280 that we split 60, 20, 20.
I would love to see us think through, and it'd be interesting to get Dover's feedback and the region's feedback, of course. But I would love to see us consider one,
I agree.
for next year. Is it helpful? Is it beneficial? Does it deliver on the value we think it's going to? And then maybe we bring in a second, maybe one is good enough, but like.
And could you do the one that does humanities and STEM? I don't know if that's even a thing that exists out there, because I mean, Denny's doing it all, so there must be somebody out there.
To be clear, I don't mind it. I'm very happy. Like,
No,
we clone you.
but I also think there was such a compelling presentation
Right.
3 weeks ago. Like, makes sense. And obviously, everywhere is dealing with cost reductions. I very much understand that. But like, considering you guys have pulled out $219,000, I would like us to at least try to fight for this one position.
Yeah, and
if the other committees are aligned.
And I'm so sorry. What was the net number to Sherborn again? If for one or for two?
So it's 56,000 for two.
56,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you wanted, divide that in half, if you just want one. So
So 28,000 for one, but you're paying 28,000 for
So it's an
consultants.
$8,000 incremental.
Wait, that's all. We're talking about $56,000.
Yeah. So like I just said, it's the impact.
But it's more at the region.
It's more at the region. So
Yeah.
we have to add $168,000.
And does the town of Sherborn take half of that?
Basically.
So that's what I'm asking. What's
Yeah.
the all-in town of Sherborn number? Forget how we break it up in school
140.
committee.
140 for Sherborn, 140 for Dover-ish.
Theoretically.
And
For
that's
two,
and that's
or
two.
70 for each if it's only one.
70 grand. And how much do we budget for consultants?
Just 20.
20 for
20
us,
here,
but
so I did 20
So
in
we'd be
Dover,
at
and I did
450.
32,000.
We'd give them 450 back instead of 500 if we went with one. If the numbers are that simple.
And there's no
Generally
other
speaking, yes.
retirements that we're anticipating.
No,
They're all in there that we know of.
Unless something could happen post-budget, but nothing that's following, notifying us and letting us know, yeah.
And then my other question, and I'm way out over my skis on this one. Circuit breaker, are we like maxed out, or is there money that can come out of Sherborn and that we can use circuit breaker money for? Am I
Yeah,
in
so
the
that
right?
circuit breaker money we use that can only go against out of district, right? And right now, the 70,000 represents 75% of our projected reimbursement for.
And that's the max, right? 75%, if I understand it.
And keep in mind, I've got the whole issue where we're changing the
Yep,
accounting.
I remember that.
And in best case scenario, I'm able to hold on to some of Sherborn's existing circuit breakers, so we have a safety net of the region. So that's why.
So there's no money going, basically, there's no money going into the Sherborn budget that could be.
No.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
so it's maxed out, all right.
Yeah, it is maxed
Thank
out.
you.
And you will see, just segregating quickly over to your current financial statement. And here I did bring to your attention that, somewhere this fall we did change the pre-K administration, so we're seeing that savings. But we're technically over like $280,000 in out of district.
which we'll pull from circuit breaker
Which
to
we'll have to
cover.
pull from circuit breaker. I will just say, I'm happy that we conserved and saved some circuit
Yeah.
breaker. As you know, every year the town's asking me to fund more and more, and I'm like, please don't do that.
Yeah,
This
here's
is
why.
This is why.
Yeah.
And so I've already used an additional 77,000 of circuit breaker, but you can still see that we're carrying a negative operating balance at Pine Hill. It's only going to grow because we still have to spend more money in our in-district, right? So, but I'm going to hold out, and so we're going to take every dollar that was budgeted and then only have to make up out of circuit breaker what's left over.
Yeah.
And so that will carry right down to the end of the year. But I don't have a lot of flexibility because of this on trying to give Sherborn more relief from circuit breaker because it's just too risky at this point in time.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'll be sitting with you guys at the meeting where we talk about this, and this will probably make that meeting way longer. I think it's worth pushing for a $50,000 or whatever the numbers are for what's best for the kids. And I think we can say we found 450 of the 500. I think we fight for this one.
And the recommendation was 2.
Right. So
I don't know what we have to
we'll
do.
bring our snacks and have that meeting, but I think we fight for it. Again, assuming the other committees are aligned. I don't want to go alone. But.
Just quickly on your other things tonight that I think that we'll have to take one more vote on your consent. I'm sorry, you want to do your agenda? I'm just jumping ahead.
No.
So
I'm loving this. Go. Yeah.
So,
find out.
the one thing that we want to do is you have your minutes, but also the pre-K tuition rates, because they have gone live with those applications, and so we want to make sure that this is approved under your consent agenda. We're asking for a 4% increase. You can see the rates, just reiterating, it's running one program. Half our students are our peers, and half of our students there on IEPs.
And can you remind me, the students who are there on IEPs receive schooling without this tuition, or everybody? Yes.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So in order so that they have peers, we tuition in students so that the classroom is complete.
Got it.
So one vote does it all.
All right. I love it. I'm ready. I have my notes. Consent items. I'll read each of these items aloud that Dawn just told us about, and if in favor, the committee can approve all the items with a single vote. So the first is approval of minutes from December 9th, 2025, and the second is the approval of the fiscal year 27 preschool tuition rates. May I have a motion to approve the content agenda? I'm sorry, consent. That's a typo.
Mega Cadiella, so moved.
May I have a second?
Bill, I'll find a second.
Excellent. We'll do a roll call vote. Kate, how do you vote?
Yes.
Nathaniel, how do you vote? You were muted, so.
Yes.
Excellent. Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mega, how do you vote?
Yes.
Becca Hammond, yes. The motion carries. Our next meeting is on, I didn't fill this in.
March 10th.
Thank you, March 10th. Is there anything anyone wishes to add to the agenda as of now?
That'll be version 3.0 and more discussion.
Yeah, so we'll regroup then.
Oh, actually, your next meeting is February.
Oh yeah, February 24th, I suppose, right?
Oh yeah.
But I don't think we'll have individual agenda items for the 24th. So we'll talk about March agenda items. So the bus update is great. I would imagine we'll get an update on the feedback you guys have heard about this proposal. I think that'll be important, as well as we can bring any feedback. Anything else from anybody?
Can I just ask maybe a newbie question? Where do we get where are the details for the overall, what did you say, 800? Is that an overage? I'm not sure the right terminology. Is that,
from the town. From the town.
Yeah, so if you look at the town must have their, the town administrator published a memo about the budget, and it's in that information that went out. It's probably on the town website, my guess is.
Okay.
You know what? We have that memo. We can pass it out. We can
link it in the FAQs.
We can link it in the FAQs.
Okay.
When can we look forward to those FAQs being published?
Well, version 1.0 can go out tomorrow because we've already done a big brainstorm of what the questions are going to be, and then we'll just add to it.
And so that'll be in the Parent Square update of
Parent
this
Square.
is what's happening and stuff like that. I do think historically there aren't always a lot of people who read that and engage with it. Some certainly will. So to the extent that you guys are having conversations, if you point people towards the Parent Square notification, that can be beneficial to make sure that it gets on people's radars before it happens and there's a groundswelling of, why didn't I know about this and stuff like that.
And Becca, can you just remind me? Sorry. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
I apologize. Would this be more appropriate as a direct email to parents? Would be my question about that, because if we just put it on Parent Square, some people get 5-6 messages from Parent Square every day, and so a direct email to the school distro list of parents who've given their email address might be a little bit more appropriate and highlighting this is important.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do both. And we can post it on the website. For people who don't want to go digging through their Parent Square app, they can go to the website and find it there too.
Are we asking if people have questions? Is there a way to submit a question?
We can do that. We can do a form.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you. If we hear individually, if one question keeps coming up, do we let you know? Do we let?
Yeah, you guys can shoot me an email and I'll pass it along.
Okay.
But I do think it makes sense to give people the opportunity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I don't think a lot of parents at the school know that the town of Sherborn is facing such a budget shortfall and that it will affect so much of the school. So it's going to I foresee this causing a lot of flags being raised, a lot of lights going on between people who A, don't know about the town, and B, don't know that, we're talking about moving to a different model for foreign language, And then also, by the way, all these great things that we were thinking about doing, we're now rolling the other direction. You know,
I do think we want to be very careful, though. My understanding is that the instructional design, that's not the right word, that's from work, the instructional evaluation and the Spanish recommendation are not budget driven.
Right.
Correct.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I would definitely think that needs to be highlighted. It's just that when these all come out, people are naturally going to draw a bridge in between the two.
Yeah, the perception will be that it is.
Yes. Which is not the case. There is no perception. I mean, the perception would be there, but it's not the actuality that is.
Yeah.
So
The override did come up during the town hall meeting last year. So
Yes, they said we were getting close to
Yeah.
the declining
so there is
thing.
hopefully some awareness, but
Yeah.
I also do
So
wonder
like
if
two
you
lines
couple-
of met and
Yes.
it actually exceeded, and
Right.
that's the 847,000 is what they're over their tax limit.
Right.
All right, yeah.
The 2.5%, right?
But to be clear that some of these decisions would be made with or without that.
Correct.
Right.
Sherborn just happens to win because it's in their favor. Some
So
of
I
these
just
decisions.
wonder when you're talking about that on Parent Square, we just talk about these changes coming out. It's really not on us to have to talk about the override. Right?
Yeah.
So it's,
And I think we've tried to make that clear that these would happen regardless.
Yeah.
Well, most of them, yeah.
just from for those of you who were also there at the town meeting, I believe that was a couple months ago. Education really is a long pole in the tent, you know, for this town. So the fact that we're talking about moderation or cuts in that matter, whether it be small or in some way, is going to affect people directly. And so the response could be quite a bit overwhelming for what we're used to.
I think I agree with Mega very strongly that the messaging, you guys are probably planning this already, on the day and the changes made there should be based on our DESE requirements and completely separate from budget. And then the budget stuff that we'll talk about, certainly it's public, right? People could watch this video and things like that. But I do think those should be separate because they are separate. And then we'll see what happens in the conversations with the town and all
And
that.
it's no different than the enrollment
Right.
impact. It's because of the enrollment.
that's right.
Yeah.
But we should be prepared.
Is there, last question, is there a space to go into like executive session to talk about the collective bargaining agreement and how this affects this?
Yes, so if that's a wish of the committee, then we could schedule an executive session for updates from the people who are sitting at the negotiation table and for questions and feedback from the rest of the committee members. So Becca and Mega are at that table, so if you are interested in that, let them know.
We'll need guidance on what we
Thank
can
you.
say from you. I don't want to break any rules.
And usually I'll be honest, usually we'll bring all three committees together so everyone's hearing the same thing. I will say I think it's too early to do that, but there is a time that we will bring people together if necessary, if there's pertinent updates.
Okay.
But we typically don't give
Incremental updates and stuff like that. Okay.
However, Nathaniel, if you have feelings or ideas that you want to share about, potential collective bargaining topics, you can do that separately to Becca or Mega, who can process it and bring it to their group.
And we have a meeting tomorrow, so if you want to shoot us an email, we'll read it.
Or a call.
Or a call might be better. A call might be better.
I just was wondering how, like, with the town shortfall and everything on, how all those things fit together.
Yeah.
My guess is that we probably want to wait a little while before we give that update of what we can share. Okay. Our meeting has now come to an end. It is 7:24 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn? I didn't do this.
So
okay. May I have a second?
Delafano.
Amazing. Kate, how do you vote?
Yes.
Nathaniel, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mega, how do you vote?
Yes.
Becca Hammond, yes. The motion has passed.